Well, as you know, most of the new cars out there are just loaded with tech. And today we're going to have a conversation about what is some of the vehicle tech that you like or that you don't like or that you trust or that you don't trust. And if we have time, we're going to take a look at the ins and outs of the GX, the Lexus GX 550, one of the biggest SUVs on the road. And when I say we, I mean me and Mr. Greg Morrison, Bumper to Bumper TV, out of cold Atlanta today. And Mr. Greg, who is that? Talking about Mr. Greg, Mr. Dave Bolt, who left the hot LA area,
Comfortable LA area, right?
Come back to the East Coast, TexGarage.com. That's TXGarage.com. But before we get into the stories of the day, I want to send out all of my, prayers and condolences to the people in the LA area. They're on fire out there. And normally when you say LA's on fire, they don't literally mean embers. You know, it's unbelievable the videos that I've seen. And I remember we were talking in the green room about where was it, down around the San Diego area years ago, the devastation they had with fires out there. And LA is just unbelievable. You're seeing where they're close to some cities they're talking about it just being wiped out completely. And it's moving towards the ocean, so that's not good. The land area near the ocean, if you've been in the LA area, is some of the, probably the prettiest scenery you're going to find anywhere. So hopefully our cohorts out there on the West Coast in that area will be okay and survive what's still going on. If you know an African American that's 30 years or older, please make sure he visits his urologist and get that PSA exam. I always say it's that little prick that could possibly save his life. And also you can find us on blackpressusa.com. And please show the panelists some love. They're taking the time out of their busy schedule to share their knowledge and wisdom with you, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Knowledge, wisdom,
wisdom, knowledge. Show them some love, some hugs, some kisses, subscribe, whatever you do now out there in social media. Speaking of social media, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. I may have given the wrong car company, but Kia, the K4, has a TikTok car configurator. Have you all seen that yet? Have you taken a look at it?
No,
I haven't.
So it's going to be interesting to see if TikTok goes away, what they're going to do. I guess they're betting that it's not going to happen, but they have a TikTok car configurator. So interesting.
And what does that do for you, Roosevelt? Here I am, the Luddite, the analog guy.
A car configurator, you can build out an automobile.
But I can do that on Kia's own website. So why do I need TikTok?
Because TikTok has millions and millions of viewers or potential buyers of Kias. That's why.
But could not these smart young people find Kia.com themselves?
No.
Why
Really?
work? Why work when someone else can do your thing for you?
It's Kia.com. Build your own. Anyway, yeah.
But it's not. I can do this for 10 seconds, for 5 seconds, for 20 seconds, and go on to something else. Is crazy.
Could we take just a moment? Go ahead, Craig.
The attention span of a gnat on speed.
Jesus. Well, can I just take the moment before we get heavily into tech?
Yes.
When you mentioned Kia and their TikTok presence, Kia, of course, is the automotive face, if you will, of the NBA. Toyota's the official automotive sponsor of the NFL. Could these people, these corporate entities, take 1/10 of those budgets and spend it on local media? You know, whether it's Black Press USA, the people that help distribute this, or just the local paper in a suburb of Dallas that needs the advertising support, or for that matter, the Dallas Morning News itself that needs the advertising support. And a little bit of those NFL or NBA monies could go a long way especially if other automotive OEMs would follow that, could go a long way in supporting local journalism, local press coverage, and the local political scene. Spending money with the NFL and the NBA, I don't think enhances my viewing experience of those games at all. It provides Kia and Toyota with a visible presence, but I know who Kia and Toyota are. And if I don't, I can go to toyota.com or kia.com. So why not take a look at spending money locally? And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for the paid announcement.
It's an unpaid announcement. Yeah,
I'm afraid an unpaid announcment.
Yeah, I don't derive any funds from this. I do derive satisfaction from reading local journalism, and the fact that these people can spend millions and millions and millions on essentially corporate tie-ups that do nothing but get some of their senior executives to the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. That does nothing for me. Local journalism does a lot for me.
Okay. Thank you. And we will come back to that with a rebuttal. I don't know who's going to come on with a rebuttal, but anyway, let's talk about tech that you like in automobiles. There's probably only one piece of tech that you all hear me talking about on a regular basis, and that is adaptive cruise control. And to me, that is my favorite piece of tech. Now, the downside of that, I still don't trust it 100%. And I don't think that we should trust any tech 100%. We should pay attention. You know, you look how long it took anti-lock brakes to catch on. And I think in some cars you can still feel the brake automatically pumping. But adaptive cruise control to me gives you a relaxing ride if you're out on the highway. It's less stressful. You're not moving from one pedal to the other. You're not trying to manage the distance between the car in front of you. And if somebody does happen to squeeze into that little space that they do when you're out on the highway without giving the turn signal to let you know that they're coming, the car will slow down automatically. And hopefully you won't hit that car in front of you. But again, I don't trust the tech because in some cars, as journalists, we're in and out of cars every week. So we don't get really accustomed to how these systems work. And with adaptive cruise control in different cars, how fast the car reacts is not the same in every automobile. And the distance that you can set between the car in front of you and the speed is not the same in every automobile. So it can be distracting or a little stressful when that happens to you, if somebody just darts in front of you. But anyway, guys, what kind of tech do you all like the most?
Well, for me, it would be blind spot monitoring. I live in Atlanta, and anyone who's driven down on the downtown connector or any of the expressways around here will tell you it is nice to have that monitoring because you've got some, shall we call them enthusiastic drivers who feel it's their imperative to just come up right beside you at 70 miles an hour, even though, you know, you've got your signal on for a half a mile that you're trying to come over. The big challenge I find with blind spot monitoring, so many cars are engaged in a different fashion. For example, in a Mazda, you'll see an alert on your IP. And a lot of them, the alert is in the mirrors, or sometimes it's embedded in a heads-up display. I mean, if there's a uniform location where we knew where to check for blind spot monitoring, that to me would be, you know, something that I would really appreciate. That and lane keep. Because how many times have, you know, we've been running down the road, having a good time, and the car starts drifting out of the lane. And it's just a gentle reminder, pay attention to what you're doing, or to use a turn signal when changing lanes. I know a turn signal is not considered new tech, but I'm surprised the number of vehicles I see on the road that they just don't seem to work with their turn signal. Am I missing something?
Yeah, that's a piece of tech that's a suggestion.
Oh,
We suggest that you use it when you're changing lanes. Now, Greg, if Frank Aquifer heard you say that, he would be blasting you. He said, if you set your outside mirrors properly, you wouldn't, and the inside mirror, you wouldn't have to have blind spot monitor.
I agree with that. I mean, it does help to have your mirrors set properly.
Yeah.
But as we all know, you get into some of these newer cars. There's so many things going on. Between your IP, sometimes your heads-up display. If you've got a big monitor screen to monitor your center display screen to monitor Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, blind spot monitoring is just something that can just sort of get your attention. Hey, pay attention to your driving, asshole. And I agree that using a mirror set properly is the way to go. I mean, you've heard me talk about my old Volvo. I use that to teach my grandchildren how to drive.
Right.
And my granddaughter was telling me recently that she's glad she learned on that because she learned how to check her mirrors on a regular, as opposed to waiting for some device or technology to tell her there's somebody in your blind spot.
How about
Now,
you, Dave?
oh, don't get me started, Roosevelt. But
Why not?
I guess my underlying principle with regard to tech, what bothers me most about tech is that we have it to offset the distractions of other tech. You want to change your heat, your temperature control. It used to be a one-step process in the analog day. It now could be a three-step process as you wade through the protocols on your quote-unquote infotainment screen. You want to change the band of your stereo. Used to be one step. It's now at least two. It might be three. So the fact that you've got, frankly, positive things like a rear view camera or a blind spot monitor, both of which offset the smaller amount of visibility we have in sitting in our cars. The fact that you've got those is good, but the underlying premise, the fact that we've concocted these to offset other distractions, give me the analog car, give me one-step processes for most controls, and give me adequate visibility with properly adjusted mirrors. Thank you, Frank. And I'm good to go. And I don't need to tell you guys, but maybe we tell the audience. So much of this decrease in customer satisfaction is based on the tech that doesn't work or is difficult to understand. And for every dealer that has their product genius in the showroom to go through this with you over a 2-hour period, are 10 dealers who are still just handing you the keys and telling you to figure it out yourself. So,
Well, now, Dave,
Roosevelt.
tell me the one that you like.
Well, it kind of alluding to what Greg suggested, I don't mind the blind spot monitor. I think it's Honda, but a couple of OEMs, as you set the turn signal to your right and look to your rearview mirror, they're also including the blind spot view in the instrument panel itself. So
that's Hyundai Genesis.
Okay, and I kind of like that, and I do like a rearview camera. I don't have the mobility that I had 10 years ago with respect to articulating my neck or looking over my shoulder. So I can appreciate a rear view camera when backing up in congested areas. I prefer my Miata and just putting the damn top down. That's my preference relative to a rear view camera, but I can see the benefit of those. So it's a very short answer, Roosevelt, because there ain't much that I do like, but I do see the value of that.
We were going to go to that next, but you want to make that first, so that's okay. What we don't like. But it's interesting, and I think the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration came out with some stats that more people are killed in cars here recently, even with all the tech that's in automobiles. How do you guys think that's happening? Why do you think it's happening?
We're distracted because you've got so many buttons, lights, and devices to keep track of. And I think another part of it is we have a generation of drivers that are coming online now. Let me back up. For this group, each one of us, when we were old enough to get our first driver's license to start driving, it was a big deal. It was a rite of passage. We are seeing a generation of folks who are delaying getting their first driving experience till they're in their late teens or early 20s. For most of us, it's 15, 16 years old, couldn't wait to get behind the wheel and deal with all of that. And because of devices like this, people are so busy looking at these devices, they're not paying attention to what they're doing when they're behind the wheel.
But before you go on, let me cut you off. We have more tech in these cars, and you're just talking about blind spot monitoring. Most of the time, if you're using your smartphone, you're really not looking at the road. And if you have lane departure warning, that should bring you back. Some cars actually will bring you back to the center line. So if we still have all these tech in the cars that will do some of this stuff to keep us from having accidents, why are we having more deaths in cars? I don't get that.
Go ahead,
Greg.
I think part of it is that we are just so distracted with everything else that's going on. There's such a thing as information overload when you're driving. I like simple driving. In fact, that picture right there demonstrates how much I like simple driving. It's me and my sons in a 72 convertible Volkswagen. Real basic. You had 2 outside mirrors and 1 inside, and you paid attention. Because there wasn't a whole lot of information coming at you. Now, I get into a car. Okay, do I want to listen to satellite radio from the car? Do I want to listen to a stream? Am I going to follow the map directions on the screen, or am I going to just listen? Too many distractions. And, the smart driver is the one who says, okay, I don't need that distraction. Just shut it off or ignore it and focus on driving.
I have a neighbor who was recently T-boned in his late model Jeep Wrangler. The good news is the Wrangler handles a T-bone very, very well. The bad news is the driver that T-boned him admitted to the cop that she ran the stop sign because her phone app didn't tell her a stop sign was there.
Excuse me?
You bet. You got it right. The phone app did not inform her that there was a stop sign, so she proceeded to run it. And that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, in this convoluted cacophony of tech and the ability to independently operate a vehicle on the road. I understand
just help me understand. A stop sign is red. It's octagonal. It's got the white stripes around.
Highly visible. Beyond Coca-Cola and Ford, it's probably the singular most identifiable object we have in this
on the planet.
Yes.
In the world, you see a stop sign, a stop sign, a stop sign.
Alto, even if it's marked Alto, we understand to stop. So until it gets rebranded, and after Gulf of America, it may be rebranded. It ought to be completely identifiable to anybody on the road. The stop sign means stop. But since her phone didn't communicate that with her, she proceeded to T-bone a Jeep Wrangler. Thankfully, Jeep Wranglers, body-on-frame vehicles, everybody in the Jeep was spared injury. But it's just the height of stupidity, and I think speaks more than anything else to the negatives of tech, not because of the tech, but because of the people that are relying on it and have, if you will, shit-canned common sense. Will that stay in the podcast?
Yeah. I'm not editing you anymore, Dave. I don't have the time, and I can't find AI that'll take you out.
Well, I was going to say, as soon as Greg used asshole, I thought
it's on. It's on.
Even though I asked the question, I think I have 2 answers to that. One is close to what Dave was talking about. And the other one is that people take speed limits, as a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you should pay attention to or abide by.
Right.
And the same way with stop signs. That's a suggestion. People will go. It's in our days of learning how to drive, it was called a rolling stop. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether people know what a rolling
California
stop is.
Rolling stop, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that speed is probably the number one where people just don't pay attention to the speed limits are. And I forgot years ago, I was in a vehicle test car, and it may have been a Mercedes, and it had a speed limit reader. That's when speed limit readers were coming out in these cars. And the car actually slowed down to the speed limit.
Really?
Have you all ever been in one that did that?
No.
Well, and that's an example of tech that, you know, I'm going to say this, and I know the folks at Mercedes and BMW will not be happy.
I don't remember whether it's exactly Mercedes or not, but go ahead.
Yeah, but a lot of the Europeans tend to over-engineer things with redundant systems. And I remember seeing that technology in a car that was basically a limiter. Say, okay, the posted speed limit's 55. You go above 55, the car will slow down. Well, they had a lot of complaints from folks. There were a lot of complaints about that. People saying it restricts their ability to get out of the way, or if they're in a hurry for an emergency. So now you get in some vehicles like I was in a Mazda recently, and posted speed limit's 55 on the road, and you see a little red line at 55.
Right.
And then if you go over 55 in that zone, you'll get a display on the center screen saying, "Hey, you're 5 miles over. You're 8 miles over the posted speed limit." So it's, you know, but again, that's something that if you're not really understanding what the purpose of that information is, you're just looking at it, and then, you're doing 63 miles an hour, and oh shit, there's a bus there.
Yeah, I mean, it shocked me when the car slowed down. I thought something was wrong. But the more I drove along and it started happening again, you're going through your mind saying, okay, what's causing this? What's causing this? And that was what it was. I remember when the adaptive cruise first came out, and I was in a Jag, and I'm tooling down the interstate, and the car just jumped right in front of me, and the Jag hit a hard brake.
Oops.
Fortunately, I had my seatbelt on, and it scared me to death because I thought something had gone wrong mechanically with the Jag. And in that instance, I actually pulled over to the side of the road and walked around the car, started looking for stuff. But, like I said earlier, we're in and out of these cars every week. We don't get to check everything that the cars can possibly do, but hopefully owners will. But speed, I think the suggestion of speed is what's the top reason that a lot of these people getting killed in cars with all this tech.
I'd also argue, Roosevelt, it's time, to my way of thinking, for legislators, whether they be local or statewide, to reevaluate speed limits on roads based on today's cars. Now, I understand that may be more problematic with these tech distractions, but we've got Fairfax County Parkway in Northern Virginia. It's a 50-mile-an-hour limit. Most people are doing 60 to 65. To my way of thinking, rather than break the speed limit by 10 to 15 miles an hour, why not modify speed limits to better reflect what people actually drive? And if they're going to say, well, at higher speeds, it takes longer to stop, we're not dealing with four-wheel drums anymore. We're dealing with four-wheel disc brake systems. And cars' physical capabilities are so much better than they were even 20 years ago. Take that into account also. People will respect speed limits that are logically drawn, and very few of these anymore are logically drawn. In California, it's go 80 miles an hour regardless of the posted speed, and for the most part, people get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
used to think when it came to speed, I said, okay, let people drive as fast as they want, and if they have an accident, it's their responsibility. They get no insurance and they have to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, and a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to take a quick look. Go ahead.
Unless you're the person that was hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, we were going to take a look at the Lexus. This is the 2024. That it? Yeah, that's it. The GX 550. Sitting in my little driveway. Anyway, this is a $71,000 vehicle. $71,455. The color is what's called a Nightfall Mica. Has a saddle interior. 349 horsepower, 3.4 liter V6 twin turbo. So even though it weighs what, 3,000 or 4,000 pounds, it will get out of its way. It's supposed to tow about 8,000 pounds. What do you guys think about? I know, Dave, you said you hadn't been in it.
Well, I've been in it, but I have not had a week with it, Roosevelt.
Okay.
Yeah. My initial introduction at a Motor Press Guild event in Southern California was very, very positive. Saw it at the auto show, liked the packaging a lot. I like, even though it's not a small SUV by any stretch of the imagination, neither is it gigantic. It seems to me to be kind of a right footprint for what it's intended for, which is going down the roadway as well as an occasional off-road departure. And being a Lexus, $70,000 does kind of stick in the throat. But as I think I've written, you can own this for 10 years, hand it off to a kid, and they can drive it for 10 years. So if you take that 70 grand over a 20-year ownership period, which a lot of Toyota Lexus owners do, it isn't that much per month.
Now,
I've had a chance to get behind the wheel of one of these. It's a fascinating vehicle in terms of technology and ride and so forth. And think about it. Remember, Lexus had discontinued the GX for a minute and then brought it back with this whole new look and whole new body style and much more aggressive engine platform. And as you pointed out, it's great for cruising down the highway. It's a wonderful highway cruiser. And you're not afraid to go off-road. I mean, seriously off-road with this, and you're not have to worry about, oh my God, am I going to have to get towed out of here? I think if there's any challenge with it, it is the point that, as you say, $71,000, some people choke on it. But if you look at the competition in that same segment, they're $78,000, $90,000 easily. Look at what BMW, what Mercedes offers in that same segment, what Infinity's offering in that same segment.
What you can spend on a Wrangler Jeep, for God's sake,
Yeah.
which is far more simplistic and doesn't begin to have the feature content of a Lexus GX.
Yeah. So, I mean, dollar for dollar. And as you point out, this is the kind of vehicle you can drive for 10 years, give to the kid if you like him. And, say, okay, drive this for a while. Now, the kid will complain about putting gas in it because it does suck down fuel.
Yeah. I found it interesting. It's extremely comfortable on the road. And by being a Lexus, a luxury SUV, you wouldn't expect anything less than that. What I did find a little something that I didn't particularly care about. As you can see, it's a three-row SUV. Seats 7 passengers. Most people buy 3-row SUVs for the space. And as you can see, behind the third row, you have no real storage space. You could probably pack maybe 6 small duffel bags stacked on top of each other.
I was thinking a couple of lunch boxes.
But if you open the rear hatch, they probably fall out on you.
Yeah.
But I had a conversation. I had this around Christmas time, and I had a conversation with a couple that's looking at getting a new car, and we were talking about space. And the husband the wife wants a 3-row vehicle. And the husband is saying, well, you can get a 2-row. You don't need 3-row. They have kids, they have the sporting events and all that kind of stuff. But most people who buy 3 rows buy it for the extra space because they can let the seat back down on the 3rd row and use it just for storage. It's not for carrying passengers.
Well, I would think, and I've thought for a long time, a lot of people buy 3 rows because they want to take the neighborhood to a ball game, but they don't want a vacation with the neighborhood. I don't want a vacation with the neighborhood. In fact, there are some times when I don't want a vacation with anyone. But be that as it may, if you've got a 2-row with a 3rd row option, you've got that flexibility for those neighborhood kids that you are going to the park with. But you can, again, fold down the 3rd row and have to my way of thinking, more than enough space for you to carry the stuff that 4 people typically carry. So, and in contrast to the Land Cruiser, which is built on the same platform and has much of the same sheet metal, the Land Cruiser doesn't give you a third row because of what the battery pack for the hybrid system occupies under that floor.
Now look how sophisticated these seats unfold. Watch the seating area pop up. Whoops. I mean,
Is that done electromechanically?
yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, I see. I would buy that. I would buy that from Lexus. I would not buy it from the Germans.
There we go.
That's crazy, Roosevelt.
Contortionist, but you can
I
get
was
in
gonna
there.
say, I've always called the third row in these vehicles the penalty box.
Yeah, right.
You know, or the place where you put the in-law that you really don't like. You sit all the way back there in the third row. Yeah.
You know, you can get in and out. And I said in the video, no, there's a voiceover. I said, please use caution. And one of the reasons is because of the running board there is not that wide. It looks wider than it is. And you can step out of that thing and slide off and again find yourself on the ground.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, that's why you put people back there you don't like. Yeah. But this is for a very select segment.
Yeah.
The average person who wants an SUV or a crossover that size is usually going to go for a 2-row and tow capability. You know, I love how these companies say, oh, it can tow 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 pounds. How many people do we really know that are towing that much on a regular basis? In my circle of friends and acquaintances, I think 2 of them have boats. The rest of them aren't towing. So it's almost overkill. It's nice to have the capability, but do you really need all of that? I would rather spend my money on something that's a little more functional and also runs on regular. Because if my memory serves me correct, that runs on premium, correct?
Right. But you can run any of these cars on regular. It just reduces the horsepower.
You know. Now, I did notice that you stretched out there in the front seat, in the passenger seat. The only thing missing was your Afghan to keep you warm.
Yeah. I started, since I'm of that age now, I spend a lot more time talking about getting in and out of cars. I talk about relaxing as a passenger. What I have out there in the driveway now is what is it? Tacoma. I can't even talk. Tacoma Trail Hunter.
Right.
And getting in and out of that thing, it doesn't have a grab handle for the driver. And I talked about that. It has a grab handle for everybody else but the driver. And to me, you can't defend that.
Yeah, I had that a few weeks ago, and with a shorter inseam than yours, Roosevelt, I'm having to step up, and yet the roof line is still relatively low.
Exactly. That's what I also mentioned.
You're having to step up, duck, and you have nothing to grab
Right.
other than the steering wheel itself. Yeah.
And I bumped my head several times, and I put up short pieces, and some, couple people, well, one person mentioned, yeah, they bumped their head getting in and out of it also.
The capability is amazing, but
Yeah.
to get that capability, they've kind of taken away from why I would buy a mid-sized truck,
Right.
which is a smaller, more nimble footprint. They've widened it and made it less nimble.
Well, this GX 550, if you're in that income level and can afford or want a 3-row SUV, I think this is one that you should take a look at. It has all the bells and whistles, and when I say bells and whistles, that's everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
To me, one thing that's missing, the sunroof could have been larger. They could have gone with a panoramic rather than the regular size sunroof. But other than that, you have the heads-up display. You have all your functions for off-roading. If you want to take it off-road, most of the people who go off-road, run off the highway or something like that.
you park
Off the
on the
shoulder.
grass.
That's off the shoulder. That's their off-roading. But it handles very well to be so big. Like I said earlier, the ride is extremely comfortable. The seats are comfortable. The seats are a little wider than most seats you see in cars. Because as you know, Americans, we're getting Bigger in the
adding
butt.
to our resources.
Yeah, bigger in the butt. But as you can see, that a sunroof to me, that could have been a lot bigger for all the internal space that you have to light up.
Or it could be deleted.
Yeah.
If like me, you found you find a hole in the roof a little bit counterintuitive. It's a roof.
You know, as our late friend Frank Washington would always remind us, this is a truck, folks, that
Yeah.
has been dressed up to be your passenger vehicle. And it's a very well done truck. Where I salute Lexus is for their suspension and their handling. My God, you know, it's something as big as that, and yet it rides like a limo.
Yeah.
They've always had that great ride, that great handling. And they've basically civilized the truck platform.
Well, I
And-
think. Go
And
ahead.
I was gonna say, if you don't have $70,000, I forget what the Toyota Land Cruiser base is at, but you can get the
55.
same basic architecture for under 60, and that might be a valid alternative. Knowing that you'll give up the V6, you'll give up the third row, you'll give up some towing capacity, but you've got all the responsiveness of that IMAX Turbo 4 hybrid that you would ever need.
Right. Yeah, and the Land Cruiser from Toyota, I think it's tow rated at what, 7,200 pounds? Come on.
Is it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, come on. I mean, you know, we've got to really think, how often do we tow something that heavy?
Yeah. Well, if you're in that income bracket, you have more people than we have as in our circle of friends that have boats and all that other kind of stuff. But before we leave, I did see that we have a comment in the chat. Terry Avery says, I don't know whether that's a T with a he or a she, Terry, but she's at the Mazda dealership looking at the CX-70. Only thing it's going to do is save you some money in your pocketbook.
But I'd also say I tested the CX-70 a couple weeks back. I don't understand the 2-row vis-a-vis the 3-row CX-90 because there's virtually no differential whatsoever. I gotta think there will be more demand in the used car market for that 3-row variant, the CX-90, than there is for the CX-70. There
Right.
are no differences otherwise. Maybe a half a cubic foot of storage space. I'd opt for the CX-90, despite not having in-laws at this point in time, nor grandchildren that ride with me.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, the CX-70 is a comfortable 2-row. Yeah, they took out the third row. It's a little more cargo space. I sometimes wonder it myself, but you know, then again, one of the Mazda folks was telling me that one of the things they find that in Europe, there's not that much demand for a 3-row.
Right.
And so, and that was what they were thinking about, that European market. They said, well, let's try to see if it'll work in the North American market, because there are people who have 2 rows, but they just want some extra cargo space back there to, you know, put stuff in.
But as I understand it, for the European market, these are slightly more narrow configurations. The 70 is called a 60, the 90 is called an 80. So
Yeah.
the footprint is slightly different anyway. I wish Mazda were selling those in the States, because I continue to think imports should be sized like imports and not like Ford Explorers. But that's me.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
And I get paid nothing.
Right. I want to say, Dave, you're getting paid. We're paying attention to you right now.
Oh, God bless you, Roosevelt, and happy New Year.
But I want to thank all of you who took the time out to watch Auto Network Reports live, as well as you that will watch the replay, the on-demand. You can find us on Black Press USA and several other websites. Subscribe to AutoNetwork.com, and as I mentioned earlier, please show the panelists some love. Subscribe to their social media platform. As always, go ahead, Greg. Dave.
Roosevelt, just very quickly, just for those that may have missed it at the beginning of the show, if you're an automotive OEM, spend some money with your local newspapers. You can, if you can't find them, go to the internet, newspaper.com.
Right. Oh, okay. As As always, please buckle up, don't drink and drive. Buckle up, don't text and drive. See you next time. Happy
Drive
New
safe,
Year to
everybody.
everybody. In case you missed the show last week, show number 2 of 2025.
Bye bye.
Just everyone be safe out there. And if you're in the snow zone,